Noelle.
Well, I'm so excited to be here with you, Kris Krohn. I actually have been following you for very many years. You actually were one of the inspirations of me to take YouTube to a full-time level, especially as a real estate entrepreneur. So I'm so excited, first of all, that you're decided to have this conversation with me. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very, very well. Thank you, Noelle.
Awesome, awesome. So, like I said, you were actually, I found you on YouTube many years ago. You were teaching on real estate, and people may not know this, but you have an incredible video. You have a video called How to Invest Money in Your 20s that
Yeah.
has over 6 million views on YouTube. Okay. And that was like, just a powerhouse video. And at the time, I was actually in my 30s. I wasn't even in my 20s. So, kind of what inspired you to kind of start teaching people and telling about your story and kind of what was the origin story behind you getting out there and teaching people how to invest money and how to get into real estate?
I'm a big fan of creating value in the world, and I don't like being transactional. Transactional is I create value and you pay me. What's so
Yeah,
cool about social media is I can create value for literally millions of people, and then maybe a handful of them will come back and say, "Hey, I think you're my guy. Like, can I
yeah,
invest with you or can I mentor with you?" And so
yeah.
it's actually a business model that I really believe in. I feel like I get to give 1,000-fold effort out, and then I get
Yeah.
to find a handful of people that I get to build business with.
I love it. I love it. So talk to me though about the investing in your 20s. What did you do in your 20s that made you say, I really got to get to people and tell them what to do, early on and kind of get them going in the
I
right
I
direction?
think I kind of had a weird job when I was in college. I worked this telemarketing company,
Okay.
and they were selling these real estate guru packages and biz op packages for, like, Donald Trump, Robert G. Allen,
Really?
Robert Kiyosaki, Dolph DeRoos. And for me, I was excited. I'm like, wow, well, I'm in college and I'm picking my career, and I think I figured out what I want to do. I want to be a doctor. And
Okay.
within a matter of months, I figured out I do not want to become a doctor. I actually don't like chemistry. I don't like some of these science classes. I prefer math and statistics and other things.
Yeah.
And at that time, what was kind of cool is I was outbounding these phone calls, thousands of them a year, doing interviews, talking to people. And most of the people kind of fell into a very certain box.
Mm,
30 years earlier, they had been in college.
okay.
Now they were in their 50s or 60s. They
Mhm.
had 401ks, they had IRAs, they had been trying to pay off their house. For the most part, they were fiscally responsible. And I got to see what the aftermath was after finishing almost their entire work career. Most of these people had a couple $100,000 saved up for retirement. Most of these people had maybe half their house paid off, and that
Wow.
was it. And I was
Yeah.
like, wait. I'm in college. You're telling me I'm going to get this job and do this thing for
Right.
40 years, and at the end of the day, I'm not going to wind up like my German immigrant father taught me, with like millions of dollars. And
Yeah.
that's when I realized, oh no, the hoax is up. I'm thankful. I don't have to wait till I'm 50 years old, 30 years later, to find out that this is a joke. And
Yeah.
that's when I decided I needed to figure out how to actually become financially successful on my own. And
Yeah.
the degree was just higher education to work for somebody else. It wasn't
Mm.
actually something that was going to create freedom or liberation.
I love it. I love it. So continue kind of telling me this because this is super interesting. I did not know that. So when you were kind of meeting these people and talking to them and obviously seeing if they wanted to be in these different coaching programs, like what was like the light bulb for you? Like, I don't want to be a doctor. I want to do this real estate thing or this business and investing thing.
Well, a lot of these people were working 40, 50, 60 hours. And I myself, because I was a full-time college kid and I also had this full-time job, I started being able to appreciate how hard full-time was. And I was like, man, this stifles a lot of flexibility. This stifles a lot of creativity. You're telling me that someone's going to tell me when to wake up in the morning, and then my prime time, the best hours of my life, are going to be given to them. And then at the end of the day, I'm going to earn an income that is never going to be enough money for the life I want to live. So I just
Yeah.
said, dude, this whole thing just smells broken. And
Yeah.
that's when I said, you know what? I actually tried when I wasn't going to be a doctor. I looked at all the other degrees. I met with my counselors, and I was like, shoot, like this just like 50,000 a year, $200,000 a year, $80,000 a year. This all sounds like middle class broke. And I
Yeah.
wanted more than that. And at the time I was in college, I kind of had a secondary education going on. In the
Okay.
background, I had met three people that had each made over $10 million in real estate. And I asked all three of them to mentor me. One of them said no. 2 of them said yes. And I basically started following them around, studying them, taking notes. And by the time I graduated college, I had figured out how to turn $3,300 into 25 properties worth $1.6 million. And by the time I graduated, I actually didn't have to get a job. My real estate gave me a 6-figure residual income and I didn't need to work.
I love it. I love it. That is so inspirational. It's so funny because I've watched some of your videos and I've kind of heard your story. I'm glad you were able to share that there because that is so inspirational. And I don't think that people realize that it is something that everyone can do. They always feel like,
Yeah.
oh no, this is only for the rich, or this is only for the connected, or this is who you know, and different things like that. So let's talk about some of the things that you learned, because obviously you have another video, how to teach, how to invest in real estate for beginners, over 2.3 million views on YouTube. So obviously you know how to work as a real estate entrepreneur as a beginner. So what are some of those things that you did, some of the things you learned? Obviously people can go watch that video. We'll put a link to it here, but what are some of the things that you like really learned and honed in to get those, 20 some odd properties?
Well, the first thing I learned is that if you buy distressed property, that doesn't always mean it needs a lot of fix up. And so my very first home that I bought, I needed $3,300 as a 3% down payment on this $110,000 house that was worth $150,000. And I remember when I bought it $40,000 below market. And in that moment, I'm like, I just this prior year worked my ass off and I made like 20 grand. So this is just by finding, I feel like a pirate. I'm looking for treasure. I was buried treasure. I found this house that has $40,000 of equity, and I had just traded 2,000 hours last year for my less than $20,000 a year. So I just thought this is fantastic, and I put the down payment on it. But here's when the light bulb went on for me. A year later, I used the equity, a home equity line of credit from all that equity had gone up, and got a loan, and I used it to buy my second property. This second house was a foreclosure that was worth $250,000. And I had negotiated with this bank to buy it for around $160,000. Wow. And so all of a sudden, I'm like, wait a second. I just walked into, all of this equity, ended up buying the house. I rented it out. I made $600 a month positive cash flow. And that's actually when my wife and I got married young when we were in college. She became a believer on the second house because she said, the first house, we have a basement apartment that is actually covering the whole mortgage. So we live for free. Yeah. The second house is paying us $600 a month. And we were still so poor that $600 a month in free rent was like,
it was enough.
It was a big deal. So then I used my second house to buy my third house. By the time I bought these 3 houses, my net worth was over $200,000. And I did all that for $3,300. And I was like, that's house hacking. And that was the first major thing I learned was this whole idea that you need money or credit to buy real estate. I bet it's a lie. I'm going to prove that it's a lie. I bet it can take little to no money. And that's been my experience ever since.
I love it. I love it. That's what I said. I always connected to a lot of your content. I actually started more in the real estate game, the correct way, I should say, with wholesaling. I got a coach. He started teaching me wholesaling. I did a deal. I got $5,000. I was living in my parents' basement. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I like mind blown. Sure. And then I worked up to doing fixing and flips again, then keeping rental properties. But you kind of started with just keeping the property, straight buy and hold. And so how were you? What did your mentor teach you? Because I was in a different situation. I was broke, bankrupt, bad credit. Yeah. My mentor is like, you need to get some money, get your credit fixed, and then we'll go from there.
I think what was going on in my mind was after I bought that second house and it had a $600 a month cash flow, my wife knew that I had already been complaining about college. I'm only getting a degree, so my mother-in-law doesn't kill me. And furthermore, I did not want to exit college and get a job. And so we sat down and she's like, well, Kris, how many of these homes would you need to buy to not have a job? And back then we thought $10,000 a month was like rich, like
right.
So we're like, shoot, if I just buy 20 homes at $500 a piece of monthly cash flow, I don't need to get a job. And so all of a sudden the goal was these 20 homes and I had 2 of them. So I needed 18 more. And so I don't know. I think like getting a grundle of money, like from wholesaling is like a really good feeling. But for me, I wanted sustainable freedom. Yeah. And so I wasn't interested in millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands. All I wanted was enough to cover my lifestyle so I didn't need a job. That was my motivation, right? Yeah. And then something cool happened after my third home. My father-in-law, who kind of thought I was crazy for buying these homes. I'm in college. He's like, you're supposed to do the college thing and you're not doing it very well.
Right.
And And when I bought my fourth house, I actually didn't have the money yet for it. I didn't have equity to pull out of my homes. And I remember he called me up, it seemed like out of the blue from a vacation after watching me do this for 2 years. And he said, tell me more about this real estate thing you're doing. And I said, okay. And I told him my numbers, and I could hear on the phone, because he was on the East Coast and I was in Utah, and I could hear through the phone the scribbling of a pencil and the clickety clack of a calculator. And I was like, I think this dude is calculating my ROI. He's going to be impressed. And after I told him about the 3 homes, he said, what's your next move? I said, well, I found my 4th deal, but I don't got money. He says, I'll give you the money. Let's split the profits equally. And I was like, yes.
Right.
And we bought several homes that way. And then I was like, dude, why one father-in-law? I could have several father-in-laws. I started recruiting people. I started targeting people that are like, I'm looking for someone that's like in their 40s and 50s, has been like a Dave Ramsey hardcore saver, the 401k mentality, the accumulator that is now kind of getting closer to retirement, doing the math and realizing, shoot, I've got enough.
Right.
I'm going to help them put their assets into real estate where they can make some real money. And I started doing that. And I basically, by the time I finished college, I had 5 partners and we were buying homes rotating every month. And that's how I got to 25 homes by the time I graduated. It was like a $12,000 a month positive income. And I didn't need to get a job. So that was kind of like my first goal.